Palantir stock. Palantir is the subject of today's video. So I saw this article was written just a few days ago here. I thought I would go ahead and read through this with you guys here today on the Reaction channel and kind of give my opinions and perspectives about the points this gentleman brings up in this video. Palantir AI is eating the world. So yeah, I love to read through different people's opinions, perspectives on stocks, whether they're bearish, bullish. Sometimes we react to those on the channel. I understand like the last month has sucked for Palantir shareholders, and I know there's a lot of people trolling Palantir and things like that. But let's just back up a little bit. Let's not forget year to date, the stock is up 127%. So has the last month sucked in regards to Palantir? The last few weeks, sure. But the stock has still been pretty darn tremendous this year, and anybody that was buying the dip all last year and certainly at the beginning of this year, you've done pretty dang well with this one so far. Okay, it's a long journey in regards to stocks like this. Okay, so to understand Palantir, it's worth tracing the evolutionary chain of precursor technologies that today underpin its attractive platform. I will perform the exercise briefly in the introduction, after which I will provide the quantitative analysis of the business, including a brief assessment of the primary moats. In short, with $3.1 billion in cash, no long-term debt, very strong embedding moat, and decades of growth ahead, I believe Palantir at $30 billion enterprise value is attractive. Is it the most attractive it's been last year? No. And for those buying today, you will invariably need to exercise patience in the years ahead. That said, I do like it here, and for those with a long-term horizon, right? And this is kind of like the frustrating part of stocks is many times folks get very caught up into whatever's like, okay, the stock's up 127% year to date, right? And so a lot of people think, oh, the stock's expensive now. It's overpriced, it's overvalued or something like that. It's not how stocks work. A great example is NVIDIA, right? NVIDIA was $110 back in Q4 2022. NVIDIA makes its first double up. It goes to $220. People are saying this is crazy. NVIDIA is a bubble. This is wild, right? Today, NVIDIA stock trades at $400+, and it's actually relatively cheap. If you look at what the growth rates are NVIDIA has versus what the forward P is, the forward P NVIDIA right now is in the 30s, and they have triple-digit revenue growth, and they're growing their bottom line by nearly 10x. So the whole premise of it's gone up so much means it's overvalued doesn't work. The same exact way where if a stock goes down a ton doesn't mean magically it's the greatest deal ever in the creation of mankind, right? If a firm stock fell 70%, just because it fell 70% doesn't mean it's a great deal then at that point, right? Just because Robinhood or whatever stocks, were popular, fell, Coinbase or whatever. If they fall 60, 70, 80%, doesn't mean they're cheap. You got to look at what are the net incomes this company's bringing in, what can they bring in the future, likely over the next 3 to 5 years, and then try to work backwards with your valuation and say, does this make sense? So I think that's an important factor we all have to account for, especially in regards to a stock like Palantir that's gone up a lot. You could also look at Palantir. Palantir a few years ago, 2-3 years ago, Palantir was a $30, $40 stock, right? So you say, oh my gosh, Palantir is $14. It's the cheapest stock in creation of mankind. It doesn't work like that. You got to really look at what the net incomes can be in the future, okay? Note, in order to understand Palantir, PLTR, and its platform, I believe the following introductory ideas are worthwhile. Yes, they are very much qualitative oriented. I will provide deep quantitative consideration following this introduction. Over the last 3 to 5 years or so, I've almost certainly focused on the idea that Earth and its citizens are curiously fashioning themselves in the superintelligent AI of sorts. There's a global superintelligence that has been building via the internet, something akin to the synapses in the brain, data centers, something akin to gray matter, and the neurons within the system, the humans in the digital world. That is, humans and our technology have conspired to build a global superintelligence based on a set of precursor technologies that I will define just below. The evolutionary chain has looked something like this. 1. Printing press invented. 2. Information loaded into books stored in libraries, arguably precursor data centers. That's an interesting. This is why I really want to read through this article with you guys. It's very different kind of mind place we're going here. And the more you read through it, you're like, dang, this kind of all makes sense. Computing and on-premises data centers invented. Data now stored in disconnected, separate on-premises data centers globally. 4. Internet invented. Data begins to be aggregated into a central location, i.e. the internet and data volume explode higher. 5. Cloud computing and storage invented. All this aggregated data can now be used for the creation of AI machine learning superintelligences like ChatGPT. 6, and this is where we're at now, a global network of artificial intelligence form. It is worthwhile to trace the technological precursors that have led to the creation of a fairly mind-blowing technology that is LLMs, such as ChatGPT. Without the centralization of data via the internet, and without the computing power and cheap storage of cloud computing, there could be no AIs that act as superintelligences. Without the internet, without cloud computing, there could be no ChatGPT, 100%. In this sense, it's an evolutionary chain that has led to this point in human history. And I believe tracing the evolutionary chain is worth our while. 100%. I love that. The way you put all that, laid that out there, 100%. 100%. I believe the next logical evolutionary stage is for humans to build virtual realities and architect these superintelligences into VR. Creating karmic systems, creating God in some sense, who governs our virtual reality subtly and in the most appreciable manner. Man, this guy writes. This guy writes. I would love to see you guys read this out loud in a video. Holy smokes, man. My gosh. I believe the next logical evolutionary chain will be the computational reality. For instance, in the same way we perform computational fluid dynamics for building rockets or planes, whereby we simulate outcomes based on the decisions before we actually act. We'll be able to simulate entire ecosystems using software. Wow, that's a pretty interesting thought process. We'll be able to simulate entire ecosystems using software. That's nuts. Yeah. And this is our nature of Palantir. Palantir's ontology creates a computational replica of a business or a battlefield and allows users to execute AI-driven simulations whereby companies simulate outcomes based upon a spectrum of key variables, which are so numerous as they can only be computable by a machine before actually making those decisions, right? And, you know, it's almost like the butterfly effect, or like, I don't know if you guys have ever thought in your lives, like, what if I made this decision or that decision, right? Or what if I did this instead of this, right? And, you know, we'll never know those answers. Well, at least not right now, right? Maybe we would in the future. But for a company to be able to basically create their whole system and say, okay, what if we made this decision? Or what if the AI makes this decision? How's it going to affect all these other numerous things over here? And does that give us good results? Does it give us likely bad results? Or does it give us something in between, right? And this is where AI comes in hand, because like we just can't feasibly run all those, calculations. I mean, you could, but it would be like literally pretty much impossible to do, or take your whole life to just figure out how one decision could affect things, versus an AI platform could figure all this out in a matter of seconds, minutes, right? Maybe a little longer than that if it's super complicated, but it can figure out these things and it can say, this is our best solution. We should make this decision. Oh, we're about to have a problem here likely in our business, so we need to do this now so we don't have that issue. That's magical, right? Because up to this point, you need to have a fortune seer basically be able to do that, right? Somebody that is just as phenomenal as seeing the future before everybody else sees the future. But the problem is, for most businesses, they don't have a Steve Jobs there, right? Or an Elon Musk, or somebody that's that special. They can really see the future like that and be able to, like, this is where we're going and this is how we're going to execute to go there. And so to be able to have a machine be able to do that for you is pretty darn magical, right? Because remember, most people that run a business are not super genius business people. That's something we got to remember, right? Even for a lot of big companies. Like, they're good at what they do, but it does not mean they're a super genius, right? So this is just some food for thought in regards to this whole situation, right? Just like Most people that play quarterback in the NFL are not Tom Brady or not Aaron Rodgers, right? There's a bunch of these guys that play quarterback and they make it to that high level, but they're so inferior to like the top tier guys. The same thing happens in business. So what if you have something that helps level the playing field? Well, then that thing becomes the most valuable thing in the world. You see where we're going here? If you have something that this thing over here makes your business like you've got a Steve Jobs running it, oh my gosh, what if it's better than that, right? So that's where the magic comes in kind of Palantir and kind of what they're up to, in my opinion, right?